So, welcome to the Educator series for Women Petpreneurs podcast. I wanted to do this series because there's a lot of really great educators that are out there that maybe people are not fully aware of the extent of the available education that is available to you. Okay. So, my guest today is Misty Gieczys.
Yes. Yes. Way to go, Mary.
Yes. All right. I think that might be the very first time I got that correct.
Well,
So,
thanks for having me, Mary.
no, I'm glad you're one of the educators that I do look up to.
Thank
So
you.
first, let's start off with you why the pet industry? Why are you here? How'd you get here?
So I am neurodivergent. So I have ADHD, ADD, goes with that. OCD, dyslexia, anxiety, like a lot of the people that are drawn to this industry. I knew at a very young age I wanted to work with animals. I just couldn't figure out what I wanted. Did the vet thing. I wasn't really interested in doing that. I was a marine biologist in college, wanted to be a shark scientist. That didn't go so well because they wanted only male in that field. So I decided not to do that and landed in grooming after I was a dog trainer. So I've always wanted to do things with animals. And I've been doing it for almost 20 years. So
That's interesting about the marine biology because that was like on my short list too when I was in college. And you know what? You know what? I'm older than you,
mhm.
but they didn't make things easy for women to go into non-traditional roles, industries.
Yeah. It
So
was difficult because when I was in college, one of my professors asked me because I'm really good at lab work. Like I love lab. That was probably my favorite class, and he was actually my lab professor. And he asked me what I wanted to do, and I told him, and he's like, if you think you're going to go on expedition and actually get to go study, it's very difficult. He wasn't trying to completely discourage me. He was just like, don't, the pie in the sky isn't what you think it is. And he's like, they usually give it to males and there's not very many. And it's a grant. You don't just go and do it. You have to get a grant to do it. He's like, you're really good at lab and you're probably going to be a lab rat. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I do love lab, but doing it day in and day out for someone else, I wasn't really thrilled to do that.
yeah. So any woman who my age and you are a marine biologist, I kudos to you because that is extra dedication above and beyond what the guys in the field had to do. So anyway, moving along. So you're in the pet industry, right?
Yes.
So just up until your decision to become an educator, okay? So what were you doing prior to that actual decision?
Well, it's always been evolving. So when I was 19, I wanted to run a business, but I didn't exactly know what kind of business I wanted to run. It was going to be a Subway that didn't pan out. And then I landed as a dog trainer. Loved doing that because that was one of the things I wanted to do. I wanted to train dogs or animals for movies. And I gravitated more towards the super aggressive and super shy. I worked for PetSmart and they had me come back into the grooming room when they had a super aggressive dog, and I would work with it because of course I know body language and understanding how to get a dog to do something for me because I was the dog trainer. And really like that. I went to transfer and they didn't need a dog trainer, but they needed a new groomer. So I was like, I really like this. And I went to grooming school and it was all over from there. So I made a plan of, I want to do the best that I can. I want to go to the highest point I can get to. And I saw the cover to Groomer, and it was Donna Boy's clown, her jester. And I asked, like, what is this? And I was then introduced to the world of grooming competitions and creative. So I was like, okay, so the plan is going to be, I'm going to be a competitor. I'd love to be on the cover to cover of Groomer. And you think maybe I want to be an educator. Then I want to be a judge. I want to be a business owner. So all of those kind of went hand in hand. So I put up a thing and then knock it back down. So I've already been a competitor. I have owned 2 successful businesses. I'm starting to do the judging and the teaching. I absolutely love teaching. Every job that I've had before I was a pet groomer, I was always the person that would teach someone, because I can think of something in a different way that someone, let's just call them normal, wouldn't really get or understand. So being able to think outside the box, I think, is very important, because just because I say the sky is blue, if I continue to say the sky is blue and you don't know what the color blue is, it's not going to make any sense. So just thinking of different ways of saying something, I kind of thrive on. So if I get a difficult case, so I train all of my people here, I take the time and I say, okay, how do you want to learn? How do you want to do this? What's the best way to do this? Is it repetition? Do I need to give you a whole bunch of study material? Is it pictures? What is it? So I like to look at it at different angles, and that just is very rewarding for me. And that's why I like to be an educator.
Okay. So let's talk about the very first official class you taught. Tell us about that.
My very official class, like class, or like class at, like, say, a park.
Somewhere where you had to teach. All right. And you were, I'm going to say like at a trade show or something like that. Something where you have like an audience in front of you.
Okay, I did. So IJA had a grooming expo here in Columbus, and I taught the creative class. And I had gone to, my friends, Angela and Lori's classes. I've seen Cindy Oliver doing it all the time, and trying to replicate sometimes other people's teaching styles. I wouldn't say that I fell flat in my face on it. But you definitely have to find your own rhythm, and trying to replicate or just flat out hosh posh it, like taking everyone's things and putting it together, doesn't always work. So we're going to say I fell flat on my face. We're just going to say that. I was trying to engage people, and they were kind of interested, not interested. I was trying to get them to come up and actually like participate, and no one really wanted to participate. And I was just like, I felt like I was failing. Everyone gave me good reviews and stuff. I just felt like I had an idea of, I want you to get up and I want you to get your hands on the dog. I want you to use these grooming things, because we were using blow pens. I was like, everyone come up here and let's, here's a white dog. Let's not make it white anymore. And no one wanted to come up. And I was like, hey, how about you come up here and do this? And so that was my official class. And after it was done, I was like, oh, thank goodness it's over.
Yeah, I could still smell the sweat of the very first class I taught, the point that I like to make with that is that it can be really nerve-wracking to go and do that first class. But you know what? Afterwards, you realize it wasn't that bad.
No, it wasn't. It was mostly in my head of, I had an idea of how I thought the audience was going to react and how they were going to do things. And then I was going to do this. You can't plan that. No, you can't. So finding your own voice is a big one. So like my classes that I teach now, I always try to bring humor into it. Even when I'm talking to my staff here and I'm trying to train someone, I love to use like juicy apple bottom when we're describing like a corgi butt, and we're trying to make that bubble butt. And people are like, why in the world would you come out and say something outrageous like that? I was like, but you will remember it. I was like, you're going to think of a juicy apple butt to put on that. And every time you do one, it's going to make you laugh. And then you know how to do it. So that's kind of me. I kind of throw some jokes in there, kind of make it personable, but also memorable. And that's kind of been my feedback for my classes, that I'm pretty entertaining. And raw information has been another one, because I just kind of spit stuff out sometimes.
Yep.
because it comes to me, and no two classes are the same. So
No.
even if I teach the same class, so I teach the pet tech CPR, and each time I try to pick different stories because I've been around the block quite a bit. So I have lots of stories, and I'll pull different ones out. So, or I've taken or had other educators come in for pet tech, and they have stories, and sometimes I borrow some of their stories.
Yeah.
And like I know Lori, she's got some, and I share some of them.
So, I mean, it's a really good point that we each have our own voice, and you need to have your own voice. It's probably why I'm never really too overly concerned with like someone like stealing my material, because they're
Mhm.
not me. They can't
Yeah.
present it in the same manner I am because I have my own voice. You need to find your own voice, and don't be afraid of it, because it's going to set you apart, and not be obvious that you're just trying to copy somebody and you're not that person. So
Yeah.
be yourself.
Yeah.
All right. So I know you have some wonderful programs out there. Let's start off with, what do you think is, first of all, is your favorite class to teach?
Business.
Okay.
I really like to teach my business class. My pet tech is right up there too. Because I think they're both important. Pet tech, everyone needs to learn how to do CPR and first aid on cats and dogs. If we ever get licensed, that needs to be mandatory. I really think that every person that touches an animal needs to be able to do that. So that's probably a passionate love of mine, is teaching that class. But my favorite one is my business classes,
Okay.
because I struggled as far as making sure that I felt that I was good enough to have a business and be able to be prepared. So I like over prepared for, part of that OCD problem. You over prepare. So I like to be able to give the information that I have either cultivated or I've learned from my mistakes, and teach others so they don't make those. And maybe that triggers something in someone else's mind that they are thinking about when they're opening their business, or maybe they're already running a business, or maybe they want to hire their first person and they don't know how to go about doing it, or maybe they're growing and they want to open another location. Whatever it is, you can always use someone on your side coaching you. And even if it's something that you already do, it gives you validation knowing that someone else is touting whatever that is. And you continue to hear that from different speakers too. Let's just say leash your dog when it walks in, and then every educator says the same thing, and that's what you do. Then great, you're doing a great job when it, not that that's important, but you know what I'm saying? It's that one thing is continued throughout the classes you teach, and that gives you validation that you were doing something correct, or maybe you're doing something wrong. I like to point out things that could get you in trouble if you don't know about it, and you can't always say I didn't know, because the government doesn't really take that as an IOU card type thing.
Oh, absolutely. I will say one of the best classes I ever took before I took my very first client was a class on my tax responsibilities.
Mhm.
It was taught by two former Department of Revenue guys from the state of Connecticut, and they also touched on federal, and their little secret on actually how they pulled you in as a business for a tax audit. And I sat there and I'm thinking, boy, I am making none of those mistakes.
Yeah. It's you want to be able to teach someone. So like one of the classes that I'm going to be teaching here on your platform, one of the business summits.
Yes, in fact, I think that is the one in September.
Yeah.
Doing the fall summit for positive educational training.
So that class, I've gotten a lot of good reviews on kind of teaching that subject. It's going to be the first time it's going to be exclusive, but it's going to be about, yes, it's going to be exclusive. It's going to be 2 hours. Pretty much how to put in a hiring ad what goes into that, the thought process behind that, how to go about hiring people, how to do an interview. I don't know how many times I've been asked, well, how do you interview? What kind of questions can I ask? What kind of questions can't I ask? And then I go a step further and I look at body language and I look about how someone would answer something, or maybe things, little red flags that might not seem like red flags to you. But I've interviewed and hired and fired so many people that I can see telltale signs of things. So I kind of go into the psychology of actually interviewing someone and bringing them on board. Because I think that that's a big thing that people just don't know how to do. They're just like, oh, I'm here for a job. And they're like, oh, you're hired. You're here. You're a body. You're warm. You have a job tomorrow.
And that's exactly how basically I was hired for my first job. And it was like, hey, take this test. And it was nothing to do with grooming. It was one of those honesty type test things. I forget what they call it. And I passed and I was hired and I started the next day, but not a thing about if I knew one end of a dog from another.
Yeah. So it's, and I have that issue now when people like contact me and they're like, I want a job. And I was like, okay, well, here's my application, fill this out. And I was like, if you can't even do that step, I don't want to hire you. So just kind of little things that you can put in there to kind of help, have nets where you catch the good ones and you let go of the bad ones, basically. So that's what the class that I'm kind of really excited about right now is, because we are going to be debuting that on your platform. But that's what I really like to do, is to teach other people and help other people grow their businesses. Even my own employees, they are starting their own businesses as well. Very happy for them. That means that I did my job correctly. I was a great teacher. And the most someone can compliment me is to move on, to be honest, because I've given them the keys to the kingdom, basically, and they can now run a successful business and hit the ground running. So that's my goal. That's what I like. Yes, it kind of stinks that they leave and I have to find someone new, but then I find someone new and I train them and they do the same thing, or they stay longer, or they get out of the industry, or whatever it is. It's still a journey.
Okay. So now, notwithstanding, because I know your answer would be positive educational training, but let's take the online stuff out for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is your favorite place to teach a class in person?
Actually, so Whitman's just had a retreat and it was amazing. So it was out in the boonies, and I'm from farm country. So it was in the middle of a cow farm and I was like in heaven, absolutely heaven. But we had a few days, I think we had like 12 people. It was very exclusive. We did not, open it up to a whole bunch of different people. I think we sold out, I believe. And it was a few days and we really got into teaching people the structure of the dog and understanding coat types and understanding why we put certain patterns on things, understanding one collie and another collie, even though they are AKC, they can have completely different structure, how you would groom them to be correct. And you can take that and apply that to your dogs that you are working on in your salon, dogs that you're doing in grooming competitions, dogs that you might want to go show. But we put the program together for people that needed to learn your basics, how to prep correctly, what is hair, what is coat, what is fur, why do you use certain types of shampoos, what does hair look like when you demat, or what does it look like when you put product in it, how do we hand strip, how do we card, what do we do on a sporting dog versus a terrier. We just broke it down and really jam-packed that retreat with so much information. Every time we were done with one day, which it was a full day of classes, like we scheduled it all out, you had breaks and stuff, we provided lunches, their brains were mush because it was just so much information. They had booklets that they could read, write everything down. And then during their free time or meal time, they would come up to each of the educators and ask them any more questions. So you had more of an intimate one-on-one with the educators as well. So it wasn't like going to a show, you get an educator for 1 hour, you may or may not get your question answered, or they glaze over it, because we try to get to as many questions as we can, but we can't always get into super detailed. And you get the answer of see me after class type thing. With the retreat, they could ask as many questions as they want. They could sit there for an hour and pick our brains. They could have several of us. So we would have fireside chats at the end of the day. And some of them were kind of themes, like certain people that had businesses, we would be there for that, and they could ask a whole bunch of business questions. Or we had some that were, well, we're all competing, not me, I'm just judging, but everyone that was there as a competitor, and you can ask competition questions, or you can just ask simple questions or whatever you want. So it was very much a different type of environment, and it felt more personable. And we felt that we had a personal stake in those people's lives, because we got reviews later, days later, that they actually took that information and applied it directly to their grooming, like as soon as they got home. And they showed us their befores and afters of the retreat, of what that same dog would look like. We had a Facebook group that you could post exclusively for people that took the retreat. So if you had any other questions, we could, answer that. If you needed more critiques on your dog, you could put that up there. So that's by far my favorite that I've done, because not because I orchestrated it, but because it was more immersed, and you were still having fun, but you had way more information.
Okay. And see, my personal opinion is that retreats are up and coming in our industry as a means for education. Right? Some people don't like the big crowds. I mean, I love trade shows, don't get me wrong, but the energy there is really high. It can be very overwhelming to be in a facility with hundreds of other people. Right. And again, trying to compete for a speaker's attention too. But the retreats are more intimate. There's going to be more, instead of being like hundreds to one, it's, a couple to one ratio from students to speakers.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to say, watch for themes. I know of an upcoming retreat for next year, in which case Michelle Knowles is going to do a skin and coat one, and you're going to make products and then use those products on your face.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, seriously. I'm like, I really need to know when the date of that is.
Nice.
So so I think it's just a great tool in an educator's toolkit to look into doing retreats. In fact, in the October summit, which is going to be Plan B, Life After Grooming, I'm going to do a workshop on how to put together a retreat. Okay. So, where do you see your education go? Now, let's not go there just yet. Where can people get education from you?
Definitely on your platform. So I do your summits. I also have a page also on yours. They can go to my website, Designer Plus Salon. They can contact me there. I also have a Square website as well, where we have classes that I'm going to be teaching. I usually post them in all the Facebook groups. I teach hand stripping, creative grooming, cats, business. So I usually post them out there. And then of course, any expo that wants to have me, I would be more than happy to come in and teach classes. But I also like the smaller expos a lot more than the bigger ones, for the exact same reason that you just said, because I feel like, so I just went to the St. Louis one with Jessica that put that one on. And I probably had 35 to 40 people in my class. And I did a 4-hour class. It was broken up between, I think, like 2 or 3 days. I think I ended up teaching like six classes that weekend. And I saw familiar faces each class, and each class had a theme as far as what we were going over in business. And at the end, people felt that they, were more equipped for things. And I felt more connected with them because I could help them on their journey and still be able to take 10 or 15 minutes after class and speak to them directly, to help them and say, if you have any more questions, here's my business card. Go ahead and contact me. I will be happy to help you. Whereas at a big one, I might be rushing off to do another class or rushing off to do, a judging assignment or whatever it is. People are a lot more hesitant to come up to the educators when there's 200 people, because they might see a line. Some people do, they don't have a problem, but there are a lot of people that have more questions and they don't feel that they can come up and talk to us. And you definitely can. And throughout, when you see me at an expo, you can always stop me and I can either say, hey, I'm going to be here at this time if I'm like running to go judge something or go teaching another class, or I'll hand you a business card, or give you a schedule, or you can stop by the Whitman's booth and they'll tell you what my schedule is. Because I'm usually in there, teaching or doing, demos or helping out with products or something. So I do like the smaller shows, but big shows are nice as well. So
yeah, it depends on what you're looking for. I mean, I can go either way. I love the small shows because they are more intimate. And I find that when I'm teaching at the smaller shows, I think I teach more on an intimate level. Does that make sense?
yeah. Yes. No, I agree with you. I can read those people better. And so like, perfect example is I was teaching at the Pet Tech CPR class. And I usually teach to only pet groomers, pet sitters, dog trainers, pet industry people. Well, AKC was promoting me for one of their breeder symposiums. So I was teaching a class to breeders. And the energy in that room was way different than any of my grooming ones. And a lot of times I cater it more towards grooming and pet care, because I think, again, we need to have more of that. So when I was in and teaching to breeders, I tried to tailor that more to the breeders, but it was not as much give and take with those. Where groomers, I think that they can more on the same level, because I am a groomer. If
Yeah,
that
and
makes
I find that too. I mean,
yeah.
there are people.
Yeah. We can speak to them because this is our industry.
Yeah.
And like when I was teaching the breeder one, some people are like, you're not a vet, why are you teaching this? And I was like, you're just a groomer. And I was like, I'm not just a groomer. I'm actually a pet tech instructor. Like, and I've also have a biology background. And like, so it was just different. So when you have a more intimate setting, you can tailor it more to the people that are actually there. And I like to ask questions. I like to involve them. And it's a little harder when I have 200 people in front of me. Now, don't get me wrong. The first time I did have 200 people in front of me, I actually went to Nick of Whitman's. And I was like, can you please come to my class so I have someone to look at? No. And he's like, sure. And of course, a whole bunch of people I knew did come to the class, but I was definitely stressed out. People could tell for like the first 10 minutes, I was pretty stressed. And I finally like calmed down, and Nick started making some jokes back and forth, and I kind of calmed down. And at the end of that class, I told him it was my very first, big speaking engagement, and they all said that I did good. And I felt like I wanted to throw up at the beginning of it, because I was like, oh my gosh, I was so nervous, because I have a fear of speaking in front of people, because I'm dyslexic and I do stutter and I do repeat certain words sometimes. So I'm very conscious of that. So I try and I take my pauses and I work on it. And people are surprised that I have that, because they're like, well, you seem like you're very knowledgeable. And I'm like, I am knowledgeable. It's just, I have those fears like anyone else, speaking in public and making a complete idiot of myself. But I take that and use that to my advantage sometimes. And I just make jokes. And then I feel better. And then the audience feels a little bit more at ease that I'm not I don't want to be like a dictator up there kind of thing. I don't want to be preaching a sermon or something where everyone must be quiet and listen to me. I like a back and forth sometimes. I like to ask a question and get an answer back so I know that people aren't sleeping.
That's the only thing when we're doing all day classes, and I'm also an instructor. So you get to like hour 4 of the class and you're like, wake up.
Yeah. I was like, if I have to be here and speak.
It's a long day. We get it.
Yeah.
Take a sip of juice, get a coffee, whatever. Just, whatever. Be present in the moment.
Yes.
But then on the same token, part of the reason I like the big trade shows is that there's more vendors there.
Yeah.
So more things. I mean, I'm retired from grooming for going probably closer to 5 years pretty soon. And I went to Groom Expo in Pasadena. They came home with grooming supplies. I still have dogs,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I love Super Zoo. Not a huge grooming presence.
No. I mean, I've gone and competed out at once, and then I flew in specifically for one class and flew out as soon as it was done. And it was I can't even think of his name at the moment. He was the creative groomer that's in Thailand.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It starts with an S.
I don't know his name, but I know because Don Enboy was it Don Enboy? I think it was Don Enboy who just was walking him around and introducing him to everybody.
Yes. So I flew in specifically just for that class because I debated on going, because it's like a 6-week program to go over there to learn from his school. And I saw that they snagged him to do a class. And I was like, I don't care how much it costs. I'm going to fly out there. I'm going to spend the night and I'm going to go take the class. And as soon as class is over, I'm going to get up back on a plane and I'm going to fly home. And it was way cheaper doing that than to taking his class. Now, of course, you can't jam pack as much in that, however many hours he was teaching that class than going to his school. But that was important to me. And I that was the only class that was interesting to me at that expo that I wanted to see. So I just flew in for that, but I did do that.
Yeah, it's primarily a retail show.
Yeah.
So if you go to Super Zoo, wear really good, comfortable shoes and not ones you just bought, good, comfortable.
You get tired looking those. I tried to look at not talk to them, just look at every vendor the first time I went. And I was like, oh my goodness, it is huge.
Yeah.
Like I want to go just so I can go look at all the vendors.
Yeah. They're going to Super Zoo is going to let the traveling groomers do a live podcast there.
Oh, nice.
So that's nice. We're looking forward to that. But this, like I said, there's pros and cons. You have to kind of decide what is it you want out of any given education that you're getting? Do you want it in person? There's lots of in-person opportunities. Do you want to do it online? Do you want to go to retreat? I mean, there's so many options that are out there. There's no reason not to continue your education.
Well, I think that a mix of all of them is great. There are definitely pros and cons to each one. If you can't travel, maybe you're new to grooming and aren't making a whole bunch of money, or you want to, doing the online classes, you can still, especially if it's a live one, you can still ask your questions. So it's going to be very similar to going to an expo. You might not necessarily get the face-to-face at the end of the class, but that's not guaranteed that you can do that either. But the great thing about the online is a lot of them, like, especially with your platform, what is it, like 6 weeks? You get to rewatch them if you're a member?
For the live summits, if you have a membership, you can watch them for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
If you just purchase sort of a la carte, you don't want a membership, that's fine. but then you only have 3 weeks to watch those recordings.
So that's definitely a pro there, because if you go to an expo, you can't rewatch that.
Yeah.
They also don't let you record
Yeah.
any of those classes. So one of the biggest pros for online is you get to rewatch it a lot of times, depending on, the platform and who you're taking it from. So that's great. So you continue, sometimes you might have to hear it 7 times before it sinks in. Maybe you're not ready to hear something and you listen to it for the 3rd time. I know I've definitely thrown on your podcast several times with maybe the same person, and I pick up different things each time I do. Usually when I'm driving somewhere to like an expo or something. And I might have heard the same thing over and over again, but then I pick up something different because I'm ready to receive that.
Yeah.
Going to an expo itself, you do have the camaraderie of everyone else that's in the class with you. You can bounce ideas off them. You can talk to vendors. You might be able to get FaceTime with the teacher, not guaranteed though, but a retreat, it's going to be more money, of course,
Yep.
a little bit more chunk of your time sometimes. But honestly, I think if you are looking for just education, you get more bang for your buck. And like with the Whitman's retreat, if you went there, you also got discounts on grooming stuff that you ordered there. So we went over tools and stuff and what we like to use, and people get their hands on it, and they could actually, we had live dogs there too. So it wasn't just, lecture. It was, we actually had live dogs there and showing you how to do things and showing structure and stuff like that. But being able to then get a discount on grooming equipment or free shipping or whatever it is also is helpful. So it kind of has a little bit of an extra with the retreat. So me personally, I think the best, if you're looking for raw information and education, a retreat is the way to go. But if you don't have the time or the money, online is great. And if you like both, then an expo.
Yeah.
But it just kind of depends on how you learn too.
Right. So where do you see yourself as far as teaching is concerned in the future?
That is a loaded question. I want to be associated with being able to help people further their career and their business faster, pretty much putting gasoline on it. If I can help one person in each one of my classes, I've done my job. I would of course want to, help others, but I really want to make teaching a full-time. I want to stop grooming eventually, because we can only groom so many years. We have a shelf life basically. And I want to teach exclusively. So not only run my business, but able to go around the country and teaching my different methods of doing things.
It
and
is
then also,
so doable, Misty.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what I'm doing right now.
yeah,
And
that's what I want to do.
couldn't be happier.
I just want to help as many people as I can. So even my girls here, when I'm teaching them like how to demat, you can demat things. You have to use the right equipment, the right techniques, the right products, and some of that stuff just slides out. Dematting is an art form. And I know that that's a hot topic for some people. I have show dogs. I had competition dogs. I couldn't just shave it. So I had to teach myself how to get that. So just giving that knowledge to a groomer that doesn't necessarily have that, and being able to please that customer, because maybe you were able to demat that year and save it and the customer is over the moon. I'm not saying saving a pelt, but if you don't know how to get out a simple mat, my technique could help you, type thing. So I have then done my job because you now have a happy customer. So I just want to help people.
And I do want to make mention that on Positive Educational Training, which is positiveed2es.com, Misty does have her own channel there. And it's on the library page, and it's got her name right on the icon. And if you click on that, it's going to take you to everything that she has to offer, so that you will have all of Misty's wonderful insights and education.
Yes, and thank you for having me on that platform. So definitely have helped launch some of my educational training. Definitely being part of all of your summits has also helped. Thinking of different ways of teaching classes. Something I'm also passionate about is watching other people's educational classes to see how they teach. Not so much to replicate, but to see how are they presenting the information? How are they, getting their message across, and maybe methods that I could tweak, change, or not do, type thing where I feel comfortable with. So,
I'm a very visual person, so I like to see actually the presentation of the material. And I was watching somebody and we're like, I have that same template from Etsy.
yeah, I've seen that. I've done that.
Etsy's a
Yeah.
great place to get templates for Canva and your
Yes.
points and stuff like that.
Etsy. I am all over Etsy. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go in there for something and I'm like, how did all these things get in my cart? I don't know.
Yeah, or you forget you shopped and you put cart and you go to check something out. I did that the other day and I was like, wait a minute, why is this so much? And I saw that I had other things in my cart and I was like, oh, okay.
That would be why.
Yep.
I was looking for a cape. I wanted an alpaca cape and I still didn't buy it because there was like 5,000 choices to choose from. So I was like, all right, not buying a cape today, but I spent way more time on Etsy than without making a decision.
Yeah. That's also dangerous too. It's a rabbit hole.
Yeah. All right. So Misty, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I really appreciate it. And before we leave, do you have any words of wisdom for somebody who's thinking about becoming an educator?
Do it. I mean, if you feel passionate about sharing what you love to do with other people, then you don't have to be a teacher to the masses. If you teach one person, you're a teacher. If you're a mother or a father and you're teaching your child, you are a teacher. People think that you have to do something special in order to be able to be worthy to teach someone something. You don't. You just do it. And the more you get comfortable with that feeling, the better of a teacher you will become. So I would just say, just do it and just take baby steps.
Yeah. Good advice. I will always tell do it. And remember, done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
We all remember our very first class we taught and we cringe a little bit at it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's
Okay.
like, no one saw that, right?
Yeah, right. So yeah, you need to have your cringe-worthy moment too. Okay. And then you can join the club.
Yeah, you're not going to come out of the gate, knowing everything and it's no different from when you were first starting out with grooming. You didn't know everything. Someone had to teach you. Like, you were going to make mistakes. You're going to learn from your mistakes and you're going to make it better. So just do it that way.
Yeah.
Teach one person, then teach two, and continue to add another person and you'll be fine.
Awesome. Misty, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mary, for having me.